Shenleng had acted just in time to save Consort Bayan from the jaws of death, but as the saying goes, the tree wants to be still, but the wind won't stop. Before the storm could pass, new troubles arrived like a winter blizzard. But so what? Was he supposed to be scared? Let the dogs bark. Shenleng walked on, unbothered. The mouths of the world could sow chaos, but his heart was as steady as a rock. If a storm was brewing, it would only serve as a more dramatic backdrop for his ascent. The one spreading the rumors was the young brat Bayan Nian. Bayan Nian was the son of Bayan Xiao and was serving as a hostage from the Bayan clan in the capital. Although he had been granted the title of Viscount and a comfortable, fifth-rank official position, Bayan Nian was dissatisfied and eager to climb higher. This time, seeking help from his aunt, Consort Bayan, was a hard-won opportunity, but it was ruined by Shenleng. One after being goaded by others, he became convinced that this was Shenleng's conspiracy and began to cry foul in the capital. He looked around smugly, thinking, I am the blood nephew of Duke Wu of Wei, Bayan Xiao. I'm not afraid of anything. If you, Shenleng, don't come out, I'll go to the palace and report you. Soon after, in Consort Bayan's chambers, Bayan Nian knelt respectfully before King Ning Yuanxian and Consort Bayan, his voice filled with righteous indignation. One, Your Majesty, I am certain that Shenleng harmed my aunt, her premature labor and massive blood loss. This man is utterly vicious. He continued, people may not know how formidable Shenleng is, but King Kanal of the Khan Kingdom met his end at Shenleng's hands. Your Majesty, I am my aunt's blood nephew, so how could my blood not be compatible with hers? Emboldened by his powerful backing, he pressed on, his eyes wide as he spewed his accusations. Why was it so coincidental? Just as Shenleng returned, my aunt suffered a miscarriage and lost blood. It was clearly his scheme. He orchestrated the whole thing. Your Majesty, please dispatch the Black Water Terrace to arrest Shenleng immediately. Under harsh interrogation, the truth will surely come to light. However, Bayan Nian's arrogant attitude made King Ning Yuanxian frown, his expression darkening with annoyance. The king thought coldly, you are Consort Bayan's blood nephew, yet you speak of her miscarriage and blood loss as if you're celebrating. Are you truly concerned for your aunt? Meanwhile, Consort Bayan, the very person he pretended to be so worried about, remained silent, her eyes sad and her expression withdrawn. Finally, with a look of extreme impatience, but because his wife's nephew had spoken, King Ning Yuanxian reluctantly gave the order. Li Jun, go and summon the men from the Black Water Terrace. Li Jun bowed and left to obey the command. Seeing this, Bayan Nian was overjoyed, thinking gleefully, haha, Shenleng, you're finished. Outwardly, he kowtowed and flattered, Your Majesty is wise. You must interrogate that Shenleng severely. A moment later, two agents from the Black Water Terrace entered and bowed before the king. Bayan Nian immediately shot up, turning to them with eyes gleaming, eagerly awaiting the show. But what he expected did not happen. King Ning Yuanxian pointed a stern finger and commanded, arrest Bayan Nian. Interrogate him thoroughly to find out who instigated him to spread these false rumors. Use torture if necessary. The two agents from the Black Water Terrace immediately shouted, as you command. The word struck Bayan Nian like a lightning bolt. He froze, his face drained of all color. He stared in disbelief, then looked at the two guards, stammering, Ho. As they grabbed his arms and began to drag him away, Bayan Nian struggled frantically, screaming like a stuck pig. Your Majesty, you've arrested the wrong person. The one you should be arresting is Shenleng. King Ning Yuanxian and Consort Bayan sat on the dais, silently, watching as Bayan Nian was dragged away, still wailing desperately. I don't want to go to the Black Water Terrace. I'm not going. Aunt, save me. Your Majesty, spare me. Your Majesty, please spare this servant. But the more he screamed, the more annoyed the king became, waving his hand to have him taken away faster. He snorted inwardly, this bunch is used to spouting lies. Get rid of one, and no one else will dare to step out of line. At his side, Consort Bayan smiled gently and softly proposed, Your Majesty, may I handle what comes next? King Ning Yuanxian was slightly taken aback. My dear consort, are you sure you want to involve yourself in this? Consort Bayan placed a hand on her still swollen belly. She closed her eyes, her voice soft but full of emotion. It is easy to only care for oneself, but sometimes that is too selfish. This can be considered fate between me and that child. I will not be able to have children of my own anymore. And he has a mother but is effectively motherless. I still carry his blood within me. Perhaps this is the arrangement of destiny. Hearing this, King Ning Yuanxian moved to embrace her from behind, his expression a mixture of helplessness and affection, 3 parts reluctance, 7 parts acceptance. If that is what you wish, then I shall listen to my dear consort. That evening, Ning Jang was brought from the Imperial Clan Court's prison to the palace, his heart heavy with uncertainty about what awaited him. One Ning Jang clasped his hands and bowed respectfully. Greetings to Mother Consort Bayan. Consort Bayan tilted her head, her gaze sweeping over Ning Jang from head to toe. She thought to herself, he is indeed not handsome. Labeled as a jank since childhood, never receiving his parents' love. Truly a pitiful child. Then, she spoke gently, her eyes as kind as a mother's. Jenner, are you willing to accept me as your mother? From now on, I will be your mother. Do you wish to become my adopted son? The words hit Ning Jang like a thunderclap. He stood frozen like a statue, eyes wide and mouth agape, unable to utter a word. A moment later, he trembled, his mind in turmoil as if someone had just slapped him. Could this absurd thing be real? In his mind, the predatory gazes of his other royal brothers flashed before his eyes. Ning Jang remembered when he was just 6 years old, at a palace banquet. He had naively run to join the fun, only to be met with unprecedented coldness. His father the king, the empress dowager, his mother consort Su, and all his elder brothers acted as if he didn't exist. Little Ning Jang, with a cheerful face, ran into the private hall and called out innocently, "Mother, I've come to see you." But in response, she turned her back on him coldly. She didn't even glance at him. He stood there, stunned, uttering a small, huh. In that instant, Ning Jang profoundly understood the sorrow of his own existence. His round eyes widened, his pupils constricted, and his mind went blank as he thought, even my own mother has turned her back on me. From then on, he withdrew into a corner, becoming a shadow that everyone avoided. No one dared to approach him, and they even whispered cruel words behind his back. Why is it this jinx? Stay away from him. How shameless, still daring to call consort Su mother. Does he not know how much people despise him? As he was sobbing, tears streaming down his face, he suddenly heard a warm voice calling as if from heaven, "Little one, come to me." Ning Jang dazedly turned towards the soft, golden light, his heart filled with the hope of seeing the face of the person who had spoken so gently. Consort Bayan was kneeling at the time, her expression as serene as an angel's. She patted the spot next to her and called softly, "Little one, come and sit beside me." Ning Jang timidly walked over and sat down next to Consort Bayan, basking in a warmth he had never felt before. In that moment, the child's broken heart felt as if it had been mended. He thought in a daze, Consort Bayan. Is that really Consort Bayan? If only she were my mother. The thought, once sparked, quickly illuminated Ning Jang's small soul, and the desire to have Consort Bayan as his mother became the most fervent dream of his life. But life was not so kind. From that day on, he never saw Consort Bayan again. He never attended another palace celebration. As he grew a little older, Ning Jang came to understand that Consort Bayan didn't truly like him. That day, she had acted out of kindness, unable to bear seeing a 6-year-old child being ostracized. Perhaps Consort Bayan had long forgotten the incident, but for Ning Jang, her single gentle call was etched into his heart forever. And today, that dream had finally come true. That gentle, kind woman was truly willing to become his mother. In that moment, Ning Jang felt happiness wash over him. His heart pounded so hard it felt like it would leap from his chest, and he wished for nothing more than to nod immediately. Seeing Ning Jang so agitated and speechless for a long time, Consort Bayan asked softly, "Child, why are you so dazed?" Ning Jang's voice trembled as he finally stammered, "Mother Consort Bayan. If it were before, I would have dreamed of having a mother like you." Then, his eyes suddenly widened, his expression changed, and he roared as if a long-suppressed dam had broken, "But now I cannot, because I have decided to seize the throne." The declaration, like a clap of thunder, left Consort Bayan stunned and terrified. Her mouth fell open, unable to believe what she had just heard. She looked at the young prince before her with an inscrutable gaze, thinking, His Majesty never told me this. How can a child like him possibly win the throne? Without favor, without power, and with a stutter. How could he harbor such a great ambition? Consort Bayan narrowed her eyes, staring intently into his as if to read his very soul, then asked decisively, "Ning Jang, tell me, why do you want to usurp the throne? Did Shen Lang put you up to this?" But Ning Jang stood as straight as a pole, his eyes bright as he replied defiantly, "No, no one instigated me. I just want to protect the people I need to protect. If I don't take the throne, then no matter if it's my eldest or third brother who ascends, Shen Lang and the Jin family will not escape disaster." Who hearing this, Consort Bayan paused, a faint, unreadable smile playing on her lips. What a good child, she thought, but so me. Ning Jang continued, his voice trembling slightly but full of determination. "If I were not seeking the throne, then accepting you as my mother would be a personal matter. But once I decided to fight for the throne, accepting you as my mother becomes a matter of state. Personal feelings cannot be allowed to interfere with great affairs." Hearing these words, Consort Bayan understood. This was a refusal of her offer of adoption. She slowly asked, "So, you do not want my support?" Ning Jang nodded without hesitation. "Of course I want it. But to hope for your support just because of a single blood transfusion would be taking advantage of you." His eyes shone like stars in the night sky, his voice ringing with sincerity. "I want the support of the Bayan clan, but because the Bayan clan truly sees my ability, my potential as a worthy successor. If I accept you as my mother for personal gain, it would be like forcing the Bayan clan onto my chariot, making them bear a responsibility they shouldn't have to. That would be wrong." Faced with this utterly convincing speech, Consort Bayan was left speechless. She was so astonished she didn't know what to say, able to only stand there and feel the aura of integrity emanating from the boy who had once been abandoned by the world. She was moved by his brilliant spirit. Consort Bayan fell silent, her eyes filled with contemplation as 100 thoughts tangled in her mind. A child like this could bear such responsibility on his own, daring to set aside personal feelings in the face of the storm of power, maintaining his composure to make a choice. Since Ning Jang had decided to contend for the throne, then she, as a member of the royal family, could not casually adopt him as her son. Such an act alone would be enough to make the entire world misunderstand, thinking the Bayan clan was secretly supporting his bid for power. Consort Bayan smiled faintly, deciding to let fate run its course. She accepted that she could not adopt this child. A short while later, in the king's study, Ning Yuangxian was utterly astonished as he heard the account of what had happened. He blurted out a series of questions. He refused. Did Shen Lang teach him to say those things? Consort Bayan, sitting beside him, looked at him calmly and shook her head decisively. Impossible. That simple word brought Ning Yuangxian back to reality. Indeed, it was impossible. Shen Lang and Ning Jang had not met since that night. No one could have coached Ning Jang. After a moment of silence, Consort Bayan spoke with a firm, cool voice that still held a touch of softness. The harem cannot interfere in state affairs. I will not involve myself in the struggle for the throne. But if anyone dares to bully Jenger, I will absolutely not allow it. By now, King Ning Yuangxian had calmed down. He took a breath and sat down, replying gently, if that's the case, then release him first, lest I be accused of bullying him, and incur your displeasure, my dear consort. The next morning, the Grand Court of Revision and the Imperial Clan Court jointly held a formal trial for the case of the 5th Prince Ning Jang's homicide. After 3 continuous hours of investigation, the full truth was revealed. The head of the investigation slammed his hand on the table with a resounding thud and angrily declared, an official of the Grand Court of Revision abused his public office for personal gain, intending to murder the unborn child in the womb of Shen Lang's concubine. The 5th prince killed in order to save a life. Considering the circumstances, he can be forgiven, but his methods were too harsh. The verdict is a punishment of 30 lashes. Afterward, Ning Jang was taken to the public execution ground to receive his punishment. The executioner did not go easy on him just because he was royalty. 30 lashes tore the flesh from his backside, leaving it a bloody mess. Ning Jang couldn't bear the pain, his eyes rolling back as he fainted repeatedly, a truly pathetic sight. 3 days later, the king issued a royal decree. The 5th Prince Ning Jang was to be enthroned as Marquis Changping, permitted to build his own mansion and recruit a private force of 1,000 soldiers. He was granted the old, dilapidated residence of Marquis Genuine in the middle of the capital as his new marquisate. Receiving the edict, Ning Jang knelt, tears streaming down his face as he sobbed silently. It had been 3 years since his coming-of-age ceremony, and he had watched his elder brothers be enthroned one by one while he remained forgotten. Now, he was finally made a marquis, but only after the humiliation of receiving 30 lashes that tore his back to shreds. Even so, what truly silenced the capital was how this enthronement failed to cause any waves. This was because in the capital, Ning Jang had very few supporters. Amidst the noisy banquets, guests and commoners alike gossiped while they ate and drank. The chatter was like a storm sweeping through the taverns. Hey, did you hear? The 5th Prince Ning Jang was just made Marquis Changping. Marquis? What a tiny title, far worse than the other princes. Wasn't he only released because he gave blood to Consort Bayan? If not for that, he'd still be rotting in prison. That's right, the king can't stand him. He's been known as a jinx since he was a child, hated by everyone. Now he's been given a dilapidated old mansion that was once burned down. Everyone knows this is just a token gesture. Skitsk. No one wants to get involved with an unlucky fellow like him. Amid the laughter and jeers, some expressed pity while others mocked. Ning Jang's name once again became a topic to be dissected and ridiculed in tea houses and bars. But Ning Jang was probably thinking to himself, they laugh at me because I'm different. I laugh at them because they're all the same. The whole world can just watch and see how my life is about to take off. Continuing the thrilling events of the previous chapter, Bayan Nian, after screaming until he was blue in the face in the middle of the capital to no avail, stormed into the palace to present his accusations. He loudly denounced Shen Lang, claiming that Shen Lang's rescue of Consort Bayan was merely part of a sinister, prelayed trap. He expected his accusations to infuriate the king. But who would have thought the king would pull a complete 180, coldly ordering the Blackwater Terrace to arrest Bayan Nian for interrogation instead. While Bayan Nian was still trying to stomach his prison food, Consort Bayan made a surprising visit to Ning Jang, straightforwardly offering to adopt him. Ning Jang was so shocked he nearly lost his front teeth, stammering that while he desperately wanted a powerful patron, he could not take advantage of Consort Bayan for his own gain, because his true goal was to seize the throne. He intended to enter the war for succession honorably and directly. When this news reached the king's ears, it startled even him. After a moment of contemplation, he decided to release Ning Jang, but not before giving him a few memorable lashes on his backside. And so, after countless battles of wits, words, and flesh, Ning Jang was finally enfeoffed as a marquis. Although he was still at a disadvantage compared to his brothers who had long held their titles, it was better than nothing, right? Without waiting for an auspicious day, Ning Jang moved into the new Marquis Changping's residence the very next day. The marquisate had been mostly destroyed by fire, but fortunately, Consort Bayan sent over a great deal of furniture. As he was moving in, only one family came to congratulate him, Jiang Jin, the son of Prefect Jiang Chom. Stepping inside the residence, he bowed respectfully, "Congratulations, Your Highness." With this, Shen Lang officially resigned as the Castellan of Genuine and became the chief steward of the Marquis Changping's residence. This caused an uproar among the populace. What? Shen Lang is serving as Ning Jang's chief steward. He's tying himself to the fifth prince. Isn't he just ruining his own future? He was doing just fine as a Castellan. Why would he want to become the subordinate of a prince with no prospects? What an idiot. These comments inevitably reached Shen Lang's ears, but he paid them no mind, thinking to himself, what do you people know? The first step in his plan to support Ning Jang establishing a household and office was a success. But the Marquis Changping's residence was currently just an empty shell. He needed to build an entire system of civil and military officials and recruit a private army of 1,000 men. The king provided not a single soldier, nor did he assign any officials. They had to recruit everyone themselves, 3 chief secretaries, 1 chiliarch, 10 centurions, and so on. And so, Shen Lang went in person to the military academies and the Imperial Academy to recruit. Faced with Shen Lang's actions, the Confucian scholars of the Imperial Academy sneered and whispered behind his back. Sk, who would want to be an official in that place? That residence isn't just a cold kitchen, it's an ice cellar. You'd probably freeze to death on that cold bench. Only a fool would head into that godforsaken corner. As expected, several days passed with no results. So, he took his recruitment efforts to Xuanwu Avenue. But it seemed that no matter where he went, he was not welcome. Shen Lang's recruitment requirements only gave the public more to gossip about. A chief secretary must have a provincial graduate background. You've got to be kidding. With that kind of background, who would lower themselves to be your subordinate? A chiliarch requires a military doctorate, and a centurion needs a military graduate degree. What qualifications do you have that would make anyone want to join you? Fiddle them. Anyway, I'm not going. Whoever wants to go can. Go. Even a job as a cook here would find takers. But the residence of the fifth prince Ning Jang. It's not a cold kitchen anymore. It's a frozen pit. Never mind charcoal. Even pouring kerosene on it wouldn't make it burn. Anyone who jumps into that pit is doomed to never rise again. You, Shen Lang, you're part of the Marquis of Xuanwu's household. You married in and enjoy wealth and glory. You're not lacking for anything. But we're different. We have no backing, no future. The talented people have long since joined the crown prince or the third prince. Who has the time to stake their head into the fifth prince's residence, a place so ostracized that it's worse than death? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. On the 8th day, Shen Lang still hadn't recruited a single person. And on the 9th day, Shen Lang sat there, still waiting. Then, Shen Lang did something that stunned everyone. He blatantly unfurled a banner with large characters written on it, recruiting ministers of the Dragon's Retinue, recruiting ministers of the Shadow Emperor. Not only were the characters huge, but he also had Danu stand in the middle of the Imperial Academy grounds, bellowing those 2 lines like a madman. The entire capital was instantly drawn out of their homes to gawk at the spectacle. People stared, wide-eyed. Shen Lang, have you gone crazy from boredom? An uneducated man with no official rank, what do you know of the ministers of the Dragon's Retinue? Do you even know what ministers of the Shadow Emperor means? Everyone knew that only the Crown Prince would dare use the term Shadow Emperor to refer to the successor to the throne. More accurately, only someone about to be enthroned, stationed at the princely Vanguard residence, would dare claim such a title. The Crown Prince himself wasn't even guaranteed the throne, let alone the fifth prince. Yet today, Shen Lang dared to brazenly hang this recruitment banner at the Imperial Academy, a gathering place for the educated, the powerful, and the gossipy. Sure enough, an academy student stepped out with a smirk, his voice dripping with contempt. Are you trying to say the fifth prince intends to contend for the throne? Shen Lang smiled calmly and replied, how did you know? Because that's exactly right. Our fifth prince is determined to seize the throne. Immediately, the crowd went from staring at each other in bewilderment to bursting into uncontrollable laughter, as if they had just heard the joke of the century. Everyone looked at Shen Lang as if he were a fool daydreaming in broad daylight. Not just the students of the Imperial Academy, even the stern-faced old instructors clutched their stomachs, laughing until they were bent over. It was truly the joke of the nation. Ning Jang, dreaming of seizing the throne. That guy. Short, fat, ugly, and a stutterer to boot. Hated by the king, with no power, no foundation, and disregarded by everyone. and he dared to think of the throne. He wasn't just daydreaming, he was dreaming big. The entire capital was laughing. Someone sarcastically remarked, "If the throne is swan meat, then Ning Jang isn't even a toad. He's not even a tadpole." Shenlang, the man who succeeded on the mission to the Kun Kingdom. Is that really you? The one who destroyed the main force of the Su clan in one night? Was that also you? Someone else demanded, their eyes wide with disbelief and anger. Are you a madman? Or a fool sleepwalking in broad daylight? Ha. In an instant, Shenlang and the fifth prince Ning Jang were blacklisted as the capital's biggest jokes. From high officials to students, from nobles to cooks, everyone competed to mock and ridicule them. The name Shenlang went from a miracle-working genius to a weirdo recruiting ministers of the dragon's retinue and ministers of the Shadow Emperor, a tale so absurd you'd want to spit your tea out hearing it. The halo that once made him shine was being tarnished by constant retelling. People began to forget that he had single-handedly gone on a mission to the Kun Kingdom and forced the enemy to sign a peace treaty in tears. They forgot that he had crushed the main force of the Su clan in a single night without a single drumbeat. This world is simple: succeed, and you're a god; fail, and you're a clown. And right now, Shenlang was the great fool of the era. A short green frog at the bottom of a well, daring to dream of climbing to the heavens to eat swan meat. And what was bound to happen, happened. The Imperial Academy, tired of even looking at him, kicked him out. The Grand Academy was no different, posting a gleaming golden plaque at its gate: Shenlang is not permitted to enter. If you wanted to laugh, the world had laughed enough. But if you wanted to see a good show, the real drama was just beginning. Eventually, even the military academies in the capital barred him. With no way to enter the Imperial Academy or the Grand Academy, Shenlang went all out. He carried his banner to the middle of the Great Xuanwu Avenue, then wandered down to the Vermilion Bird Avenue, even bringing a megaphone to stand in the middle of the bustling streets, shouting to recruit talent as if he were selling hot buns. Recruiting ministers of the dragon's retinue. If you've got the guts, step forward. Recruiting ministers of the Shadow Emperor. If you want to change your fate, follow me. Urgently seeking 3 chief secretaries. Just need a graduate degree. Looks don't matter. Need 1 chiliarch. Standard is a military doctorate. A good fighter who doesn't talk much. Also recruiting 3 centurions. As long as you have a military graduate degree and can fight, you'll have food to eat. The crowd gathered around him like a festival. Some stared, others bent over with laughter. Damn, this guy's got some serious nerve. First, he gets kicked out of school. Now he's out on the street recruiting gods and immortals. But Shenlang, with a face thicker than dried rice paper, sat there calmly, unashamed. If life kicked him, he kicked life back. If someone laughed at him, he laughed back 10 times harder. Every day, Shenlang set up his stall in the street as if it were a normal job. Beside him, the loyal Denu also carried a megaphone, roaring as if he were launching a campaign to exterminate demons and save the nation. A normal person would have died of embarrassment, but this big oaf was as happy as if he were at a festival. He even grinned widely. Feels like we're leading an uprising, doesn't it? And it was true. Shenlang had become famous. Blazingly famous. As red as boiled chicken blood, as red as a prostitute's lipstick, a fame born from humiliation, a reputation spread through tiers of ladder. His name grew wings, flying out of the capital, over rivers and mountains to the distant prefectures and counties of the Yu Kingdom, and then even crossing into neighboring countries to become an international media phenomenon. The rumors were rampant. Have you heard? A bizarre character named Shenlang has appeared in the Yu Kingdom, setting up a stall in the street to recruit gods and spirits to help an ugly, stuttering prince contend for the throne. No joke, he's recruiting like he's raising an army, making a fool of himself every day without a break. And so, Shenlang became the living embodiment of the phrase, "You don't need power, you just need a thick skin." Gradually, the world stopped just laughing and began to wonder. Yes, that's Shenlang, alright. He must be crazy, who else would say such things? He's shameless on a whole other level. 20-some days passed, and Shenlang still hadn't recruited a single person. Not even a ghost wanted to enlist with Ning Jang. Someone said, it sounds nice to talk about seizing the throne, but later when the crown prince or the third prince ascends, anyone who followed Ning Jang will surely die. What fool would get involved in that? Exactly, Ning Jang himself has no chance of winning. The third prince's power is so great, and even he has never spoken of contending for the throne. And you, fifth prince, you don't even have a single bird under your command. A clown, truly a clown. In the imperial palace, the king was so angry he could have exploded. Shenlang, do you have any sense of decency le? If you have no shame, fine. If Ning Jang has no shame, fine. But I still have to maintain my dignity. Do you think this is a street opera festival? Seizing the throne is something that can be done, not said, but you've done the opposite, shouting it to the 4 corners of the earth until even the neighboring countries are watching the drama. The king desperately wanted to send men to smash that recruitment stall and drag Shenlang into the palace for a good few dozen lashes. But he held back. He held back because he owed Shenlang 2 huge favors. one for eliminating the main force of the rebel Su clan, and the other for saving Consort Bayan's life. Therefore, His Majesty could only turn a blind eye, telling himself to endure. I endure for the greater good, for the nation's dignity, for my reputation. But ironically, enduring for so long had become a humiliation in itself. Because now, it wasn't just Shen Lang who was being laughed at, King Ning Jang himself had become a joke to the world. Envoys from other countries would enter the palace with sly smiles. Some even feigned inquiry. I hear your Majesty's country is holding a public election for a new king on the streets. Do you need me to apply? These days, the king's mantra was, thank goodness that God-forsaken brat isn't my son. If he were my own flesh and blood, I would have beaten him to death in the womb. The scoundrels of the world truly had something in common. The more shameless they were, the more they made you want to take a feather duster to them. Finally, even the notoriously calm Grand Eunuch Li Jun couldn't take it anymore and spoke up. Your Majesty, perhaps this servant should send someone to clear away that stall and drag him into the palace. The king was furious, but he still forced himself to endure. How much longer must I tolerate that goddamned, heaven-sent pest? Consort Bayan, also restless, spoke up. Your Majesty, why not just assign some men to Jenger so he can finish setting up the framework of his marquisate? That would stop Shen Lang from making a spectacle of himself in the streets. The king said, if it were before, I could have secretly assigned him some men. But not now. The fifth prince's side is now a pit of fire. Anyone sent there would either feign illness or desert. Finally, Ning Jang could no longer hide his despair, uttering a sentence as cold as ice. My patience is at its limit. Let him cause chaos. If that brat ever falls into my hands, I'll beat him to death. Hearing this, Consort Bayan couldn't help but smile, covering her mouth with her hand. She thought to herself, the fate between His Majesty and Shen Lang is truly strange. His Majesty is not known for his patience. Yet now he's suppressing his anger for him to the point of only being able to make empty threats. Meanwhile, Shen Lang continued to set up his recruitment stall every day. Not even the local hooligans and idlers paid him any attention. Due to being exposed to the sun and rain every day, the two calligraphy banners Shen Lang hung in front of his stall had begun to fade, the characters blurring. But no matter how faded they became, Denyu still bellowed each word as if he were reading a sacred edict. Recruiting ministers of the dragon's retinue. Recruiting ministers of the Shadow Emperor. It was still the unfailingly loyal Denyu, shouting tens of thousands of times without getting tired, hundreds of thousands of times without getting bored. Because Denyu was the world's #1 man who had survived hundreds of thousands of sneak attacks from a grandmaster. Without dying, a man who had used his body to block a sword hundreds of thousands of times and still lived to tell the tale. The problem was, the citizens of the capital were not Denyu. They had heard it so much they were going crazy. Their heads were buzzing, their eyes were spinning. They heard it while eating, while sleeping, even while using the latrine. Every time Denyu opened his mouth, the sound was like a thunderclap in the middle of a sunny day. No one within a 2-mile radius could live in peace. The entire capital was subjected to this auditory torture hundreds of times a day, to the point where many people felt like vomiting or fainting just to escape the sound. The powerful shouts that were once considered divine had now plummeted in value, ranking alongside the modern-day tricycle megaphone announcement. Anyone selling old iron, copper, broken plastic, sell it now. People cursed, for fuck's sake, stop shouting. I can't even take a shit in peace, stop screaming. You've shouted it 100,000 times already. A full month passed. Shen Lang still set up his stall in the street. Not a single soul stopped by. He hadn't recruited half a ghost, even stray dogs gave him a wide berth of 10 feet. He and Ning Jang, the two national clowns, were officially promoted to the role of invisible supporting actors, performing endlessly to an empty house. The fifth prince's Marquis Changping residence remained as it was, as empty as a deserted temple. Besides Shen Lang, not even a cat bothered to stop by to pee. On the 31st day, under a sun that burned like a furnace, just as Shen Lang was about to roar his recruitment slogan for the 800,001st time, a stranger suddenly appeared before his stall and asked, "Are you still hiring?" Shen Lang replied calmly, "We are." The man nodded. "What position are you recruiting for?" Shen Lang grinned, his spirit blazing. "A future great minister of the court, an aide to the Ascension, a minister of the dragons. Retinue." The man smacked his lips. That fits. I was originally planning to live in seclusion for the rest of my life and never leave the mountains, but seeing your great sincerity, I was so moved that I came down to give you a heads up. My value is very high, you know." Shen Lang blinked and asked, "How about you introduce yourself?" The man rubbed his chin, his face not red, his heart not pounding, and spat out 4 words, "Future Prime Minister." Shen Lang almost fell off his chair. He screamed internally, "Damn it, this guy can boast even better than I can." But the smell. Oh heavens, and so the first one fell into the net. Whether he was a heaven-sent treasure or a joke of fate, one thing was certain, the game was just getting started. Shen Lang squinted, sizing up the man who claimed to be a future prime minister. To be honest, his aura was indeed transcendent, an otherworldly style that screamed, I am the wind, I am the clouds, I haven't bathed in 3 months. To put it in human terms, this guy was the type who was unrestrained, non-compliant, and shameless. A free spirit, so much so that his body odor wanted to fly away with the wind. First, his clothes. They were definitely a limited edition from last year, as he had faithfully worn the same combo throughout the entire summer. The fabric was so thin it glinted in the sun. Truly a case of shining with a radiant glow, blown away by a holy wind. His hair. It seemed to have been washed, but a closer look revealed. Ah no, that was just rain. Every time it rained, he took a dry shower, and after a few heavy downpours, his hair now resembled that of a beggars sect chief after 3 life or death battles, tangled, messy, and standing on end, like a Taoist immortal. This overall image reminded Shen Lang of the character who sells secret manuals in movies. A nameless beggar who looked incredibly cool, at one glance, the dregs of society. At another, a worldly master hiding in a garbage heap. Shen Lang secretly took out a scented handkerchief and covered his nose out of habit. A very sober thought echoed in his head. One can fake the aura of a master, but not the smell of one. Shen Lang said, May I ask where you are from, sir? He replied, Wherever my heart finds peace. That is my home. Shen Lang asked again, Then what official rank do you hold, sir? He replied, Fame and fortune are but fleeting clouds. Then do you have any family, sir? I am all alone, without ties. Isn't that a blessing? Shen Lang heard this, and understood. So you have no official rank, no fixed abode. You're old, unmarried, and a wanderer. Shen Lang raised his hand, about to call out, Guards, when the man suddenly grabbed his hand tightly. His voice was earnest as he leaned close to Shen Lang. Young master, in this vast sea of people, you have chosen me. Isn't this fate? 1,000-mile horse is common, but a bola is hard to find. My peerless talent needs a place to be appreciated, does it not? Shen Lang quickly pulled his hand away from that filthy grasp and asked further, Then what do you know, sir? He replied calmly, looking up, I know astronomy. Looking down, I understand geography. I comprehend human harmony, am well versed in yin and yang, know the 8 trigrams, am proficient in Kaimen Dunjia, can devise strategies, and win battles 1,000 miles away. I compare myself to Guanzhong and Yu Yai, sitting cross-legged in peril, chanting in the wind and howling at the moon. Shen Lang broke into a cold sweat listening to him boast. Oh my god, you know everything. Shen Lang asked, Then is there anything you don't know? He stroked his wind-blown hair, allowing the fragrance to spread more intensely, and said naturally, I don't know about trivial matters. In my entire life, I have only ever done great things. Shen Lang felt he had seen through this man. I get it. Your greatest skill is bullshitting. Just then, someone exclaimed in surprise, Hey, isn't that Madman Lan? Another person jeered, the fun's starting. 2 madmen have teamed up. No, 1 madman and 1 fool. Shen Lang was bewildered. This master is famous. Ning Jang's eunuch whispered in Shen Lang's ear. Famous. He's extremely famous. This madman named Lan was originally a beggar who also dabbled in fortune-telling. Of course, he was never right. Once, he used a fortune-telling session to grope a woman's chest, and got his arm broken. Unable to make a living by fortune-telling, he switched to begging. For over 10 years, he's roamed the states of Wu, Shu, and Yu. If someone took pity and gave him money, he'd immediately spend it on women. Now, even the cheapest prostitutes in the capital have been stiffed by him, and he has never had any intention of paying them back. Just then, the man leaned close to Shen Lang again and said, Master Shen, if you miss out on me, your great enterprise will be ruined. Suddenly, as he was speaking, a large, muscular woman flew through the air and slapped him right in the face. Shen Lang, sitting nearby, jumped in shock. It didn't stop there. The woman leaped onto the man, using her body to crush him, causing him a near heart attack from the pain. But he deserved it. The auntie opened her mouth and roared, You still owe me 5 silver coins. If you don't pay up, I'll kill you. Continuing from the last chapter, the first step in the plan to support Ning Jang establishing his official residence was complete. But the king had provided not a single soldier or official, so Shen Lang had volunteered to recruit talent himself. After 30 days, the result was nothing but becoming the laughingstock of the nation. But on the 31st day, the first candidate appeared. Whether this man was a diamond in the rough or not was yet to be seen, but he was definitely pungent. Just then, a portly woman stormed over and gave him a thorough beating, screaming that he had solicited her services without paying. His taste, it must be said, was quite salty. She even threw herself on top of him, crushing him with her weight. Madman Lan lay flattened on the ground, but he was still alive, grinning through the pain as he breathed out, Chow Cow, we soar eternal love by the mountains and seas. How could you bring something as vulgar as money into our sacred bond? Hearing this, the woman nearly coughed up blood and rage, grinding her teeth and roaring, Love your damn head. If you don't pay me back in 10 days, I'll castrate you myself, and if I don't, I'll take your family name." With that, the hefty woman unleashed a flurry of slaps on Madman Lan's face, a continuous barrage that didn't miss once, until his face was a swollen, jumbled mess. It turned out that this cow was a former champion sumo wrestler. In her old age, with no one hiring her, she had switched to being a butcher, slaughtering pigs and goats for a living. When that meager income wasn't enough, she supplemented it by selling her body, proudly advertising herself as the cheapest in the capital, 1 silver coin for 10 rounds. After delivering a dozen slaps, she finally left. Shen Lang stood up and asked, "Master, are you alright?" Yet, this Madman Lan was impossibly thick-skinned. He stood up as if nothing had happened, patted his chest to check, and said, "Phew, lucky, the ribs are still intact." He then turned to Shen Lang, flashing a fawning, puppy dog smile. "Young master, since you're willing to accept this humble servant, could you perhaps advance me 5 silver coins to compensate for my tragic love affair?" Shen Lang almost fainted on the spot. He stared in contempt. Compensate for what? Just say it's money for a prostitute. Why dress it up in fancy words? He scanned the man from head to toe with his X-ray vision, thinking, but then again, this guy really can take a beating. After all that, he seems completely fine. Then, Shen Lang suddenly decided to test the madman's calculation skills. What is 3,895 multiplied by 5,243? Madman Lan paused for only half a second before rattling off the numbers like a cash counting machine. 20,421,485. Shen Lang immediately rushed forward and grabbed his hand. He no longer cared about the filth. "Congratulations," Shen Lang declared. "You're hired." Madman Lan was overjoyed. He wiped the blood from his mouth and said, "With a flair of tragic grandeur, a wise bird chooses its branch, a worthy minister chooses his lord. A scholar is willing to die for one who understands him. From this day forward, I, Lan, pledge my life and will serve you until death." He then immediately lowered his voice and held out his hand obediently, waiting for his advance. Shen Lang was speechless. He took out 5 silver coins from his purse. The moment he saw the money, Madman Lan's face lit up with glee. Shen Lang said, "Compensation for your emotional distress cannot be delayed." Lan laughed heartily as he took the money. "Ha ha ha, I have money. I have money." He immediately took off like a shot, chasing after the hefty cow who was slowly walking away in a huff. Cow, I have the money. Let's start over. Let's continue our beautiful love story." She took the money, but her eyes were filled with scorn as she spat out venomous words. "Give it a rest, old man. You're finished before I've even had half a piss. Every time you drop your pants, I get goosebumps. I feel guilty just taking your money." But Madman Lan's face was as hard as reinforced concrete. Shameless to the core, he turned back, bowed deeply and sincerely to Shen Lang, and said, "This subordinate pays his respects to the chief steward." Shen Lang's face immediately turned serious, his voice ringing out with the grandeur of a royal edict. "From this moment on, I declare you the official chief secretary of the Marquis Changping's residence, a 7th-rank official of the court." Hearing this, the entire surrounding crowd stood with their jaws agape, as if struck by lightning. They began to scream hysterically as if the world were ending. Oh, for the love of the cosmos. That stinking beggar was made an official. And a 7th-rank one at that. Shen Lang, oh, Shen Lang. Have you lost your mind? Did you drink too much water, or were you just run over by an ox cart? Another man pushed forward, his face red with fury, his voice dripping with spite. "My God, if Madman Lan can become a 7th-rank official, then I should be qualified to be the prime minister. What is wrong with your head, Shen Lang? Did a rat chew on your brain? Are you for real, or are you just pretending to be insane, oh heavens?" At that moment, an old, stooped eunuch standing nearby frowned and spoke in a trembling, compassionate voice. "Young Master Shen, I know it's difficult to recruit talented people these days, but this man. Honestly, even a rotten cabbage thrown out at the market would be deemed unqualified to join our ranks." Shen Lang heard this but remained unfazed, as if he hadn't heard anything wrong at all. He shrugged nonchalantly and replied with profound philosophy, Eunuch, when I employ people, I never concern myself with such trivial external details." The old eunuch was on the verge of tears. He persisted, his voice trembling, "But, young master, you must at least consider someone with a little heart and talent. This beggar doesn't even qualify to be a proper beggar. And now you're bestowing upon him the prestigious title of chief secretary. Didn't you say before that the person holding this position must at least have a provincial graduate degree?" Shen Lang nodded gravely, his expression completely serious. "Extremely clear-headed. Your reasoning is sharp and irrefutable." He paused. "Yes, it's true I said that. But I only said he needed a provincial graduate degree. I never said he had to have passed the exam. Failing the previous exam counts. The next exam also counts. And even if it takes him 10 years to pass, it still counts toward the quota." The crowd nearly fainted en masse. They stood rooted to the spot, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. They just wanted to kneel and kowtow to Shen Lang 3 times. Young master, you are truly the salt of the court. For saltiness of this level, please accept this humble one's bow. Shen Lang tilted his chin to the sky, surveyed the crowd like an emperor reviewing his troops, then turned to Madman Lan and declared with the gravity of a sage enlightening the world. Lord Chief Secretary, I could tell at a glance that you are no ordinary man. Your abilities are profound, and your connections are vast. You must surely know countless geniuses and unique talents who have been wronged by the world, correct? Could you perhaps introduce a few so that I may recruit them and immediately put them to good use? Hearing this, Lan's eyes lit up like car headlights. He puffed out his chest with pride. Young master, you are truly perceptive. I have lived half my life in the pugilist world, roamed the 4 seas, and befriended heroes as numerous as the Mongol army. The geniuses I've met are as many as carp leaping over the Dragon Gate. Every one of them is capable of stabilizing the nation and saving the people. It's just a pity that their personalities are a bit uniquely eccentric, and no one has had the sharp eye to see their value. They just haven't met their Boli yet. Shen Lang immediately put on a serious face and clasped his hands politely. Worry not, I have a discerning eye. Furthermore, I am the super vet bowler right here. Please, quickly bring them to me so I can select the most outstanding among them. Lan continued, a small matter, young master. But I must say, geniuses aren't cabbages in the market. An ordinary person might not find one in a lifetime. Now, I am providing you with 10 top-tier geniuses. Naturally, there must be a proper referral fee for this. Shen Lang was completely unfazed. He asked as casually as if buying a bundle of water spinach, so how much per person? The eunuch standing there was completely frozen, thinking with contempt, damn it, have you no shame, asking for a referral fee? You should be grateful you were even hired. Lan's eyes widened, and he threw up his hand, shouting a price as loud as a market loudspeaker. 1 silver coin per person. Absolutely no bargaining. Shen Lang's face remained as cold as stone. He nodded coolly, closing the deal. Money on delivery. The eunuch handed over the money, thinking to himself, phew, lucky this poor madman has low standards. Otherwise, we'd really become the laughingstock of the capital. A moment later, with the money in hand, Madman Lan was ecstatic. Money in hand, I'm off to get the men. Await my good news. Before the words were even out of his mouth, Madman Lan shot off like a rocket, clutching the money and running as fast as a dog chasing a cat in heat. Not long after, he appeared at the entrance of a massive, derelict temple, home to hundreds of beggars sleeping sprawled everywhere, their snores shaking the heavens. Madman Lan entered and shouted as if handing out candy at a festival, hey, wake up, all of you. A delicious and nutritious opportunity has arrived. Join the Marquis's residence and become officials. Start as lowly centurions. In a few years, promotions will come non-stop, guaranteed. To become great generals with wealth and glory, riding horses to the sacrificial altar. A beggar, half asleep, asked skeptically, for real? You're not tricking us, are you? Lan replied, when have I ever tricked you? But remember, this once-in-a-millennium opportunity isn't free. Each of you owes me 1 silver coin. If you don't have it, I'll put it on a tab. The preferential interest rate is only 1 per month. If you don't pay, I'll chop off your legs. Half an hour later, in front of Shen Ling's tiny stall, a crowd of thousands, young and old, had gathered, packed so tightly it was hard to breathe, all waiting to see the next chapter of this bizarre story. Suddenly, someone screamed with the excitement of seeing a pop star on the street. Ah, they're here. The legion of peerless geniuses has appeared, folks. Instantly, the entire street was enveloped in a legendary, pungent aroma. The characteristic scent of long-suffering, ascetic, wandering geniuses. The smell shot straight to the brain. Anyone who smelled it once was guaranteed to remember it forever. Shen Lang was startled by the sight before him, his eyes wide with disbelief. In the middle of the crowd, Madman Lan proudly led a troop of 10 peerless talents. He strode with the calm, heroic air of a great general on a campaign to quell a rebellion, swaying as he walked like he was on a fashion runway. Their fierce, murderous aura was no different from that of a mighty army preparing for a great battle. Madman Lan arrived in front of Shen Lang, gave a flamboyant wave, and grinned from ear to ear, completely shameless. Chief Steward, here they are, 10 rare and hard-to-find geniuses. I guarantee each one is as pure as distilled water. Pick any one of them, and it'll be enough to turn the world upside down, terrify the masses, and shake the heavens and earth. Please, young master, enjoy the selection at your leisure. They are more than qualified to be centurions. Shen Lang looked at the 10 people before him. All of them were beggars. He thought to himself, my god, this lineup of 10 geniuses is a bit strange, isn't it? The problem is, they're all wandering beggars from the streets and alleys. One had a face as squashed as a flattened bun, another was missing limbs, one had crossed eyes and a crooked mouth, and another's back was bent like a shrimp. He couldn't even stand up straight, let alone stand firm. Shen Lang rubbed his eyes repeatedly, trying to get a better look, but he still couldn't find a single normal person among them. But it was true, they were indeed great talents. In their own way. And this group was extremely smelly. The odor made Shen Lang feel like his nose was about to bleed. He quickly covered it with his handkerchief. Immediately after, Shen Lang's expression became deadly serious. He switched on his X-ray vision and meticulously scanned each one as if selecting precious treasures. After a tense 10 minutes of thought, he finally finished reviewing the rare and elite candidates. Madman Lan stood beside him, grinning smugly as if he had just won the Nobel Prize for talent scouting. He asked proudly, "What do you think, Chief Steward? Each one is 1 in a million, right?" Shen Lang nodded, then shook his head vigorously, sighing with emotion. "No, not 1 in a million. It must be 1 in 100,000. Lan's face lit up. He leaned close to Shen Lang and said, "So, they meet the standards to be centurions for the 5th Prince's residence, right?" Shen Lang puffed out his chest and affirmed with heroic conviction, "They meet them. They absolutely meet them." Hearing this, Lan got excited and waved his hand with the flourish of a general going into battle. "Brothers, from this moment on, we eat from the same pot, sleep under the same roof, and build a great enterprise together for the Marquis Changping's residence. Everyone, quickly pay your respects to the Chief Steward." Instantly the 10 rare beggars dropped to their knees in unison, shouting, "We pay our respects to the Chief Steward." The crowd witnessing this spectacle was in a state of shock, their souls leaving their bodies, their skin crawling. They fell into a collective existential crisis. Who am I? Where is this? Was that real or a dream? Has the whole world gone mad, or is it just me? Did 10 crippled, scab-scratching beggars just get appointed as officials? How can such a strange thing happen in our great Yu kingdom? 11 beggars suddenly became officials. Shen Lang paid them no mind, still waving his hand with majestic authority. "Gentlemen, today, my recruitment has been a success. I have selected only the most outstanding talents. Now, follow me to achieve great deeds and build a grand enterprise." With that, the group quickly returned to the residence. Daniel held the 2 large gate doors high. Shen Lang, with his head held high, led his terrifyingly super army into the marquisate like a victorious general. Madman Lan, his face covered in blood but his expression still incredibly arrogant and stylish, sauntered behind. And behind him were the 10 rare beggars, some dragging themselves, others limping, shambling like zombies learning to walk, their aura so intimidating that no one dared to get close. Wherever the delegation went, it sent shockwaves through the populace. The eunuch, witnessing this scene of utter madness, could not take it anymore. His eyes rolled back into his head as he screamed internally, "Your Highness, the servant has failed you." He then collapsed to the ground, unconscious. At the Marquis Changping's residence, the 5th Prince Ning Jang had just stepped out when he saw Madman Lan leading 10 beggars, who were half walking, half dragging themselves, all kneeling in unison before him. "We pay our respects to our lord." Ning Jang froze completely. His brain short-circuited. His eyes widened to their absolute limit as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. He was so shocked he was petrified. "What is this? What is happening before my eyes? Is there some mistake? Oh heavens, is this the elite army Shen Lang brought back for me? If my heart weren't as vast as the ocean, I would think Shen Lang was deliberately trolling me." But Ning Jang quickly regained his composure. He took a deep breath to calm himself and forced a smile to encourage them. "Since you are all here, please feel at ease. Try to rest and recuperate well." The 11 beggars entered the residence as if they had entered a heavenly palace. They were overwhelmed with joy. Their whole lives they had lived in the corners of derelict temples and stinking ditches. Now, seeing the magnificent Marquis's residence, their hands and feet trembled, and their mouths hung open. They all shouted in unison, "We thank our lord." Ning Jang continued, "Follow me, I will take you to your quarters." The group quickly followed behind him, their eyes darting around, stunned by the scenery. In a moment, they arrived. They began to chatter excitedly amongst themselves. "Whoa, is this paradise? There's gold. The pillars have gold on them. Hey guys, if we secretly take a little, can we sell it for money?" Madman Lan limped forward and stammered, his eyes shining with sincere emotion, "My lord, so where will we be sleeping? What? We can just lay some mats on the porch, that's fine." Hearing this, Ning Jang's nerves went numb. He struggled to maintain a calm expression and replied, "That won't be necessary. The western courtyard is reserved for you. If you need anything, just say the word." Hearing their lord's words, the 11 beggars reacted as if they had just won the lottery. They cheered and screamed, rushing towards the courtyard like a pack of wild dogs that had seen a bowl of meat. Each one of them was crazed, their eyes glowing as they yelled, "I call dibs on a room first, the one without piss and shit is mine." The group pushed and shoved like they were looting on New Year's Day, fighting for every square meter of clean room as if they were drawing lots to win a celestial ferry. Witnessing all of this, the servants of the Marquis's residence could only stare at each other, trembling, and ask themselves, "Oh my god, is the world insane, or are we?" And so, The beggars officially embarked on their path as officials, writing a glorious new page in history. Continuing from the last chapter, Shen Lang had magnificently brought Madman Lan onto his team. Not only that, but he had also generously bestowed upon him the title of Chief Secretary of the Marquis Changping's residence, a 7th-rank official position that sounded impressively prestigious. Yet, Madman Lan had then presented a combo deal of 10 colleagues from the same profession to enlist as well. Looking at this crew, every single one of them smelled like a dog, their postures were crooked, and they were so sloppily dressed that even the heavens would want to shield their eyes. A normal person would have run 3 miles away, but Shen Lang was different. He ignored the form, focused on the substance, and cheerfully nodded his acceptance. And so, a transformation from beggar to official happened in the blink of an eye, elevating a whole group from the gutters to the halls of power. When this top-tier team arrived, Ning Jang was so shocked his face froze like a statue, his brain temporarily lost signal, and his entire body went rigid. It took all his effort to maintain his composure. Just then, Xiaobing saw a horde of disheveled, limping beggars storming like a flood into the main hall. She immediately put her hands on her hips, blocking the doorway, her voice booming like thunder. "All of you, stop right there." A single sentence was enough to exude the aura of the golden-robed Yaksha matriarch. Her gaze swept over them, as cold as a blade, as she frowned and barked orders. "All of you, go use scrubbing brushes from head to toe. If a single speck of dust remains on your bodies, don't even think about setting foot in this courtyard, and shave all your hair. If anyone dares to bring a single louse in here, I will skin them alive." With that, she waved her hand and shouted, "Han no, bring the boiling water, and take all their clothes to be burned." The soldiers immediately rushed forward at her command. "Yes, ma'am," their response thundered. Instantly, a chaotic scene erupted in the courtyard. Beggars were grabbed by the neck and dragged, doused with entire buckets of water from head to toe, and pinned down to have their tattered rags, which resembled a hornet's nest, stripped off. Their screams echoed like pigs being slaughtered. "Ah, spare me, please be gentle, a little gentler, I don't want this official post anymore, I don't want it, okay?" But the soldiers showed no mercy, scrubbing them even more fiercely. From a distance, Shen Lang and Ning Jang could only cross their arms and silently watch the wrestling match of a bath. After a long while, Ning Jang was sweating profusely. He glanced at Shen Lang, his voice trembling. "You have some hidden meaning in this, don't you?" Shen Lang waved his hand nonchalantly. "No, I don't." That simple answer struck Ning Jang like a bolt from the blue. He jumped, sweat pouring down his face as he stammered, You really want to recruit them? You want to let that Madman Lan be the chief secretary, and those 10 beggars be centurions?" Shen Lang turned to look at the timid prince, his voice firm. "I chose them very carefully. It took me a whole month to find these people." Hearing this, Ning Jang's eyes widened, his lips twitched, and his mouth contorted as if he just swallowed a fly. A whole month to find this bunch of crooked and cracked oddities. But then he found a reason to comfort himself. But they are indeed rare and hard to find characters. Finding one is difficult, let alone finding 10 at once. Suddenly, Shen Lang stepped forward, faced Ning Jang directly, and said in a serious tone, "Your Highness, do you trust me?" Ning Jang replied, "I trust you more than I trust myself." Hearing this, Shen Lang nodded, dropping his usual flowery speech. He said solemnly, "Then allow me to be frank. They are all talents, 1 in 100,000. It took Madman Lan over 10 years to gather them. Outsiders don't know this, they truly believe they are just wandering beggars. If my previous recruitment efforts were just to make the world laugh at me, then today is the day I throw a giant boulder into a calm lake to stir up a mighty storm." But before the waves could settle, the news reached the imperial palace. King Ming Yuanxian couldn't hold back his fury, and immediately summoned Li Jun to have Shen Lang escorted to the throne room. This time, the king was in an unprecedented rage. Blood rushed to his face, turning it as red as a monkey's behind. He pointed directly at Shen Lang and bellowed, "What is the meaning of this? Are you provoking me? Humiliating me? Are you blaming me for not preparing men for Ning Jang, so you brought 10 beggars before me to retaliate? Shen Lang, you have truly disappointed me and broken my heart. You set up a recruitment stall in front of your residence, turning me into a laughingstock for the entire world. I could tolerate that. But now you dare to stand here with your head held high, acting as if you are completely in the right. Give me an explanation, a clear explanation." King Ning Yuanxian was so angry his entire body trembled, his face as white as a sheet of paper. "I admit, perhaps my handling of Ning Jang was not perfect. But have I ever been unfair to you, Shen Lang? Did I not give you free rein to do as you please? And this is how you repay me? By humiliating me like this." Once again, Ning Yuanxian felt as if he had been stabbed in the back by the very person he trusted. After ranting until he was foaming at the mouth, Ning Yuanxian turned away, waving his hand as his voice grew weaker. "Shen Lang, today you must give me a proper explanation. I have already dispatched masters from the Blackwater Terrace to surround Ning Jang's residence. In the next half an hour, if there is no edict to stop them, they will storm in and slaughter those 10 beggars you're protecting without leaving a single one alive. And you, Shenlang, can get the hell out of the capital and go back to Xuanmu City. With a great talent like you, Ning Yuangshan no longer dare to employ you. In the thick darkness, hundreds of Blackwater Terrace masters lay in wait outside Marquis Ning Jang's residence. They were only waiting for the order. If no edict came to stop them, they would act immediately and eliminate the beggars. It was better to do that than to let the king be ridiculed. Better to be ruthless once than to be humiliated by the world. Shenlang's voice was low as he replied, Your Majesty, I am being very serious. Ning Yuangshan roared in fury. Serious? Serious about humiliating me? What have I done to offend you? What have I ever done to make you hate me this much? The more the king spoke, the angrier he became, his killing intent soaring to the heavens. Shenlang calmly clasped his hands and said, Your Majesty, I hear that a special examination is being held this year. I request Your Majesty's gracious permission for them to participate. I know that the imperial examinations are held only once every few years, and a special examination is a rare exception, giving those who have not gone through the regular process a chance at an official career. This year, the Yu Kingdom has faced continuous turmoil but has also achieved unprecedented military victories. Your Majesty ordered this special examination to boost morale, so I wish to have them take part. Hearing this, the king was both angry and amused. Ha ha ha, you want a bunch of beggars to take the imperial exams. But Shenlang did not flinch. His eyes burned like torches, his voice resolute. Your Majesty, Madman Lan has wandered the world since he was a youth. Although he has never had a formal education, if you grant him the status of an Imperial Academy student and allow him to take the examination, I guarantee he will pass as a Jinshi doctorate. The king's brow furrowed tightly. He cursed inwardly. That Madman Lan has lived his whole life as a swindler. He hasn't even passed the county level exam. The metropolitan exam is in just over a month, and he'll pass as a Jinshi. Do you think this exam is child's play? He couldn't even pass the qualifying exam. What right do you have to dream of the golden roster of doctors? Shenlang stepped forward again, his voice even more determined. Your Majesty, those 10 beggars are not trash. They are martial arts talents. Although they have lived as beggars since childhood and have never trained in martial arts, many even have disabilities, and their foundations are practically zero. It is precisely because of this that they are so valuable. 1 in 10,000, hard to find an equal. There is just over a month until the military examination. As long as Your Majesty grants permission, as long as you give me just 1 month of training, I will definitely make all 10 of them pass as Wujiren military graduates. Hearing this, Ning Yuangshan's face turned crimson as he shouted, Are you insane? In this world, even someone with a modicum of talent must grind their bones and tear their flesh, training bitterly for over a decade just to dream of a military graduate certificate. Look at Zhang Jin. Look at Lin Zhuo. Did any of them not climb mountains of suffering? Did any of them not rise at the rooster's crow and sweat for 10 years straight just to squeeze into the ranks of military graduates? In this world, the martial path is far more revered than in ancient China. The status of a military graduate here is beyond imagination. Nearly all the military generals in the court must be military graduates or military doctors by training. Military graduates and doctors hold power no less than their civil counterparts. Therefore, the path of the military examination is a single log bridge that thousands of troops and 10,000 horses trample each other to cross, especially in the capital city of Tainyu, where dragons coil and tigers crouch. Every examination is a blood-soaked battlefield, with the fallen piled up like mountains. To be frank, even a top master like Shen Shizhen would find it difficult to pass. Someone on Kim Jum's level could only barely squeeze through with luck. And now, 10 half-crippled beggars, with their martial arts foundations completely empty, having never trained a single move, you want them to pass the military exam after just over a month of training. That's not just absurd, it's the raving of a madman. Such a thing is not even dared to be dreamed of. But Shen Lang had already calculated his move. He clasped his hands and made a solemn vow. Your Majesty, I am willing to write a military pledge. In over a month, if Madman Lan does not pass as a Jinshi, if those 10 beggars do not pass as Wujiren, I will pack my bags and return to Xuanmu City, never to set foot in the capital again, and I will abandon the matter of helping the 5th prince contend for the throne. Ning Yuangshan ground his teeth, the corner of his mouth twitching. This damned curse is pushing my limits again. Who is that Madman Lan? Just a beggar, a man whose reputation is utterly ruined. It's bad enough you made him the chief secretary of Ning Jang's residence, but now you want him to participate in the special examination. Do you have any idea how the world will see me? The provincial examinations have strict qualification requirements. While an Imperial Academy or Grand Academy student's status isn't that rare and can even be bought by merchants, it's still a status. Are you now going to grant that status to a beggar? No, not just one, but over 10 beggars. and Tainyu is the capital, governing several large cities with a population in the millions. Talents gather here, the competition is fierce, and every provincial exam is a bloody battlefield. The civil exam is hard, but the military exam is even harder. And now you, Shenlang, dare to proclaim that you will make all 11 of them pass at once. Is this a provocation, or do you see this court as a joke? Shenlang, you are certifiably insane. But after thinking it over, the king tilted his chin. Are you serious? Shenlang replied decisively, of course. Since last year, every word I have spoken, though it may have sounded like boasting, has come true. I will write the pledge. Hearing this, the king relented somewhat, slamming his hand on the table. Fine, I'll give you a chance. Write it. Quick as the wind, Shenlang took the brush. The black ink flowed like a dancing dragon and phoenix, the resolute strokes imprinted on the Xuan paper. The pledge clearly stated, in the upcoming special examination, Madman Lan would take the civil exam, and the other 10 would take the military exam. If Madman Lan did not place in the top 3, if the other 10 did not pass, Shenlang would return to Xuanwu City and give up helping the 5th prince contend for the throne. Finally, he signed his name with a flourish, and threw the paper on the table like a declaration of war. The king picked up the paper, clasping one hand behind his back, his eyes still filled with contempt. If you back down now, I will burn this and pretend this never happened. Then, get rid of all the beggars, and I will send men to Ning Jang's residence to serve as chief secretary and centurions. Shenlang smiled and bowed. Thank you for your kind offer, your majesty, but what I enjoy most is creating miracles, especially miracles no one thinks possible. Ning Yuangxian's lips curled into a faint smile. Just over a month to get 11 beggars onto the golden roster. Do you think the examinations of our kingdom are so easy to pass? Every year in the capital's provincial exams, 3,000 people compete, and at most, only 130 pass. He then looked up straight into Shenlang's eyes and added another condition. If they fail the exams, I will have them all secretly executed. You are the one who misbehaved, but I am the one who loses face. Shenlang merely bowed his head slightly and replied without a hint of hesitation, as you command. The king waved his hand decisively. So be it. Li Jun, grant Madman Lan the status of an Imperial Academy student to participate in the special civil examination at the end of autumn. Grant the other 10 the status of Military Academy students to participate in the military examination. The eunuch immediately clasped his hands and replied, Yes, your majesty. Having completed the difficult negotiation, Shenlang relaxed. With one hand on his hip, he asked with a sly grin, Your majesty, what if I really do create a miracle? Ning Yuangxian narrowed his eyes suspiciously. What the hell do you want now? A cunning glint flashed in Shenlang's eyes as he raised an eyebrow. Allow His Highness Ning Jang to expand his private army to 2,000 men. This sentence made the king of Yu grind his teeth so hard they squeaked. Only you would dare to make such an outrageous demand. Anyone else would have been beaten to death. Thinking this, the king said, sternly, fine, when the time comes, you can choose the soldiers. But if you fail, remember the consequences yourself. Shenlang bowed. Thank you, your majesty. This servant takes his leave. As soon as Shenlang left, the king immediately felt a pang of regret, so much so that he slapped his own forehead. I am truly a fool. How could I have agreed to such a ridiculous condition with Shenlang? Granting 11 beggars the status of actual civil and military examination candidates and allowing them to participate in the special examination. Haven't I just made myself the laughing stock of the world this time? That bastard Shenlang. That man is a walking disaster. Time flew by. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the Marquis Changping's residence. The masters from the Blackwater Terrace had withdrawn. The 11 beggars had temporarily escaped the scythe of death, holding on to a fragile breath. In the reception hall, Madman Lan and his group of beggars entered, looking much more polished than before. Except for Madman Lan, the other 10 had all had their heads shaved bald, as shiny as mirrors. After bathing, brushing their teeth, and getting rid of their hair, they were dressed in brand new clothes. At a glance, the 10 of them looked much brighter, but they were still the same crooked and cracked bunch. Only Madman Lan was an exception. With his messy hair and dirty face, he had been terribly ugly, but once cleaned up, he was revealed to be a handsome middle-aged man and a super handsome one at that. Unfortunately, his eyes were still full of a despicable look, and his expression was so lowly it made people want to keep their distance. As for the other 10, almost all of them were half crippled. Even after being washed clean and dressed in new clothes, they still walked with a lopsided gait, looking no different from a pack of repackaged invalids. Shenlang stood frozen for 3 seconds before speaking. Madman Lan, stay. The rest of you, go to bed. They replied in unison, yes, sir, and withdrew. Soon, in the study, Shenlang sat opposite Ning Jang and Madman Lan and spoke directly. I have signed a military pledge with His Majesty. In over a month, Madman Lan will take the civil exam, and the other 10 will take the military exam. All 11 of you must pass. Madman Lan must even place in the top 3. If we succeed, your official positions will be secured. Furthermore, His Majesty will grant us 2,000 troops. If we fail, the 5th prince's bid for the throne is over. I will crawl back to Shanmu City, and the 11 of you will be secretly executed. The moment he finished speaking, both Ning Jang and Madman Lan's eyes rolled back in their heads, their mouths hanging open, so scared they wanted to drop everything and run for their lives. A single thought echoed in both their minds, holy shit, young Master Shen, you're not just playing around, you're gambling with our lives. Seeing their 2 rabbit-scared faces, Shen Lang frowned and propped up his chin, his eyes narrowing as if to see into their very souls. Madman Lan, haven't you been calling yourself a genius in both literature and martial arts since you were young? Why can't you even get into the top 3 in the capital? Madman Lan was sweating buckets, his hair standing on end, his voice as weak as a dying breath. I will definitely have no problem. My talent is unparalleled in the world, but those other 10 won't make it. Martial arts training is a 10-year endeavor. With only a month and a half, wanting them all to pass the military exam is as difficult as ascending to heaven. Suddenly, Ning Jang, who was usually as gentle as a boiled potato, exploded. He shot up, slamming the table and chair. Master Lan, stop joking. Can you do it or not? This time, though his face was still filled with fear, Madman Lan clasped his hands and replied firmly, I can. Why couldn't I? Then, without waiting for anyone to say more, he bowed. Good night, 5th Highness. Good night, young Master Shen. He turned and left, his limbs clumsy, his steps like an uncalibrated robot, his entire being exuding blatant unease. Watching him go, Ning Jang tilted his head and whispered, Shen Lang, I don't think this man is trustworthy at all. Shen Lang just smirked. Just wait. I'll make them trustworthy. An hour later, Madman Lan led the 10 beggars to sneakily climb over the wall and escape. As a result, before they could get far, they were swiftly captured by Han Yu and Wu Lai, who grabbed them by the scruff of their necks and threw them right in front of Shen Lang. Madman Lan scrambled forward and hugged Shen Lang's leg, sobbing and wailing, Young Master Shen, I can't take it anymore. At first, I just followed you to get a meal. Who knew I'd get involved in a life or death matter like this? Great Master of the martial world, please spare my life. Let me go today. I will never forget this kindness for the rest of my life. Never forget for the rest of your life. Even with his dark heart, Ning Jang felt the flames of anger erupt. His whole body trembled, and he ground his teeth, cursing inwardly. You were the one who boasted about your superior talent, and now you're the one leading the escape. What do you take me, Ning Jang, for? He took a deep breath and shouted, a wandering beggar like you, valued by Shen Lang and myself, you should have known to cherish it. Do you take us for fools? Then, as if unable to contain his anger, Ning Jang roared, unripe melons are bitter. If you don't want to do this, fine. I won't force you. I will personally go and beg my father to spare you. Hearing this, Madman Lan was like a drowning man grasping at a straw. His face lit up, and he immediately kowtowed repeatedly. Thank you, Your Highness, for this great kindness. I will wait for the day to repay you. I take my leave, I take my leave. After speaking, he turned to slip away like the wind, but before he could take a step, a guard grabbed him by the collar and growled, Where do you think you're going, you useless trash? He then threw Madman Lan like a sandbag, sending him tumbling back to Shen Lang's feet, where he once again became intimately acquainted with the cold, hard floor tiles. Shen Lang stood tall, looking down at the trembling Madman Lan, his voice as cold as ice. You can pretend to be crazy all you want, but you are over 30 years old. How many more years do you have to live in mediocrity? Who are you still hoping will save you? Madman Lan's wrinkled face crumpled, tears and snot mixing together as his voice shook. Young Master Shen, please spare me. I really can't take it anymore. Everything I said before was all lies to trick people. I've never once been right when telling fortunes. I've only read a few miscellaneous books for fun. I've never studied seriously, let alone gone through any kind of examination training. In this capital, the imperial examinations are a death trap. I even failed the qualifying exam for a scholar, let alone passing, and getting into the top 3. You could kill me and I still wouldn't be able to do it. Not to mention those 10 are all half crippled and have never trained in martial arts. To pass the military exam in a month and a half. Young Master Shen, are you daydreaming? Continuing from the last chapter, when Madman Lan heard that he had to take the civil service exam and his 10 sworn brothers had to take the military one, he was shocked. His soul practically flew out of his body. Enraged, Madman Lan led his gang to escape, but life is not a dream, and they were caught before they even reached the gate. He wailed piteously, constantly begging Shen Lang to spare him. He was all talk, what the hell did he know about taking exams? Ning Jang watched this scene from a distance, shaking his head and sighing. Let it go, Shen Lang. Why force him so harshly? Madman Lan heard this and nodded vigorously. Yes, please, let me go. I'm just a wanderer from the streets. I don't know a damn thing. but Shen Lang couldn't care less. 1 was 1, and 2 was 2. Without another word, he threw a thick book down in front of the man with a thud. While Madman Lan was still frozen in bewilderment, Shen Lang leaned in close, their 4 eyes meeting with a spark of fiery passion. Madman Lan, you have exactly the time it takes for 1 incense stick to burn to commit these 5,000 characters to memory. If you can't memorize it, I will castrate you. With that, Shen Lang stood up straight and shouted, light the incense, place the knife. Madman Lan was now so scared he could have pissed blood. His face turned pale as he stammered, young Master Shen, don't joke around, this is a matter of life and death. Wu Lai didn't even bother to open his mouth. He had already drawn his sword, its cold, gleaming blade pressed against Madman Lan's throat. Instantly, the man's face went ashen, his legs trembling like a leaf in the wind. He hastily grabbed the book and began to read with all his might, wishing he could just swallow his own useless bird to preserve his male dignity. Shen Lang continued to threaten, you don't have much time. Just 1 incense stick. If you can't memorize it, I'll bring the knife down for real. I do what I say. Ning Jang was all too familiar with Shen Lang's personality. 1 was 1, 2 was 2. A true patriarch. But a patriarch was what was needed to raise a family. Heat. Ning Jang raised a hand to his forehead, unable to believe it. 20 pages of obscure literature, at least 5,000 characters. For an ordinary person, even reading it twice in the time it takes for 1 incense stick to burn is difficult, let alone memorizing it. Even a genius would need at least a day. How could this Madman Lan possibly do it? But with the cold blade of Wu Lai's sword at his vital spot, he trembled uncontrollably. Yet, Madman Lan seemed to enter a completely different state. He entered a hyper-survival mode, his mouth muttering like a mantra, his eyes darting back and forth so quickly they almost turned into a text scanner. Sweat poured off him like rain, but his concentration was absolute, not daring to stop for even a second. Perhaps it was because he still loved life dearly, and the beautiful ladies were still waiting for him. 1 incense stick later, Shen Lang said, time's up. Start reciting. He then reached out and snatched the book from his hands. Lan immediately closed his eyes and began to recite. And so on and so forth. He recited as fast as the wind, yet his pronunciation was clear and precise, each word like a nail hammered into a board. In just about 15 minutes, he had recited the entire 5,000 characters perfectly, without a single mistake, not a single word missed or added. Ning Jang stood there, frozen, his eyes looking like they were about to pop out of their sockets. Holy shit, does such a monstrous talent really exist in this world? 5,000 characters. 5,000 characters memorized in the time it takes for 1 incense stick to burn. The truth was, it only took Madman Lan about 15 minutes to recite the entire text flawlessly. Immediately after, Shen Lang casually threw out a few math problems. What is 1382 multiplied by 3,329? Lan answered in an instant. 4,597,838. Regardless of addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, no matter how many digits or how difficult the problem, as soon as Shen Lang finished stating it, Madman Lan would answer correctly within 4 to 5 seconds at most. Afterward, Lan sheepishly scratched his head and stammered, young Master Shen, can I go take a piss? And maybe change my pants? I think I scared myself so much I peed a little. Shen Lang waved his hand. Go. He left Ning Jang standing there, still gawking in astonishment. Could he really be a genius? Did Shen Lang just unearth a precious gem from a pile of beggars' trash? What kind of devilish trick did he use to achieve this? At the same time, Han Nu dragged Madman Lan off to wash his gun and get a change of pants. Han Nu was puzzled. You treasure that little bird of yours so much. While relieving himself, Madman Lan preened. Miss Han Nu, when it comes to a man's business, don't just look at the head, and don't just compare durability. The most important thing is technique. You know, the 4 ounces can move 1,000 pounds kind of thing. He then put on a mysterious air. Han Nu, I know you've heard all sorts of rumors about me. That's all just a mask of dissolute recklessness. Do you want to know the real me? Come to my courtyard at midnight. We can discuss the first half of our lives and dream about the second. Han Nu glanced at him from head to toe and sneered. Don't waste your time. It's too small. It wouldn't even reach inside me. Lan was struck speechless, his feet frozen. His little chick had been snuffed out before it could even chirp. A total mood killer. But hey, at least he was better than many men who only knew how to use it for watering plants. A little later, back in the study, Madman Lan continued his desperate pleas. Young Master Shen, although I have a photographic memory, I've never been properly educated. You want me to take the imperial exams? I really can't pass, Shen Lang said. The civil service exam mainly tests essays on classics and poetry. I have prepared 1,000 classic essays and several thousand poems. In over a month, it will be no problem for you to memorize them completely. Lan said, my ass. Memorizing them is useless. The probability of hitting a matching topic is too low. Shen Lang continued. You are a genius. No different from Kim En-seethan. Read 300 poems, and even if you can't compose poetry, you'll know how to recite it. But Madman Lan was still skeptical, unable to believe he could do it. Just then, Kim En-seethan happened to walk by and overheard himself being dragged into the conversation. He broke out in a cold sweat, thinking, brother-in-law, if you want to scold someone, scold them. Why drag me into it? Shen Lang glared. I'm just asking you, in 1 month, can you memorize 1,000 classic essays or not? Madman Lan flinched and nodded hastily. I can. Shen Lang continued, after memorizing them, can you adapt them to any given topic and write a standard essay? Lan was bewildered. A world-shaking essay? No. But to deal with the imperial exams, probably. Shen Lang was satisfied. Then it settled. What the hell are you afraid of? But Lan couldn't help but worry, his voice choked with emotion. Honored benefactor, I might be okay, but my brothers are not. Martial arts can't be learned by rote. Without 10 years of hard training, it's impossible. In the U Kingdom, the military exam mainly has 4 events: weightlifting, mounted archery, archery on foot, and saber forms. To be blunt, without 10 years of hard training, don't even dream of passing, unless God takes pity on you or the examiners are blind. Hearing this, Shen Lang turned to Deniu. Deniu, have you ever practiced archery? Deniu shook his head. Never. Shen Lang stood up and said as he walked, Wu Lai, pace out 200 steps and light a candle for me. Wu Lai immediately replied, yes, sir. Shen Lang then turned to Lan and said, and you, follow me. Fortunately, this was originally the residence of the Marquis of Genuine, and more than half of it had burned down and been leveled, so now there was a vast open space. To be blunt, thanks to the fire for clearing the way, otherwise where would they find such a beautiful open space? A candle was lit. Shen Lang pointed to it and told Deniu, shoot out that candle. Although Deniu had never shot a bow before, he nodded in agreement without hesitation. He then drew the bow, aimed at the target ahead, and let fly. The arrow whizzed past the candle flame in a miraculous way. Seeing this, Madman Lan was stunned, his mouth agape, his eyes wide with astonishment. He turned to Shen Lang, his mind blown. What the what? He's never shot a bow before, and he's this good. Shen Lang replied, to a certain extent, bloodline talent trumps all. What kind of bloodline do those 10 brothers of yours have? You don't know. Lan was shocked and confused. Young Master Shen, I really don't know. Shen Lang said, you don't know, yet you spent over 10 years searching for them, gathering them one by one to protect yourself. Caught in his lie, Lan still denied it. I don't know anything, Shen Lang said, they are like Lan Bao the Bitterhead Joy, it's just that Lan Bao was adopted by nobles, while your people became wandering beggars trampled upon their entire lives. Lan looked sad for a moment. But their bodies are already deformed, half crippled. No. Now it's too late. Shen Lang smiled and placed a hand on Lan's shoulder. Not necessarily too late. Let me think of a way. You focus on studying the classic essays, and prepare for the exam in a month and a half. Leave your 10 brothers to me. I will find a way to activate the bloodline within them. Believe me, in a month and a half, I will make you create an unprecedented miracle that will shake the entire U Kingdom. Suddenly, Madman Lan remembered something and asked in a panic, what about the other one? We have the 10 centurions, but what about the Chiliurch? Shen Lang said, he is facing a great calamity. If he overcomes it, he will become an invincible commander. If not, then he's a lost cause. Meanwhile, Xiu Jiaoyan had been sending out messages for over a month and finally managed to contact Ku Tahuan, arranging to meet in the old lot. She thought to herself, the Crown Prince has lost patience with Ku Tahuan. This is poison wine. I don't want to do this either, but I can only obey the Crown Prince's orders. Ku Tahuan is a rare martial arts talent, but that innate sense of righteousness is ridiculous. In the end, he's just a simp. Just then, Ku Tahuan walked up. Xiu Jiaoyan said cheerfully, brother, it's hot. Have a cup of wine to quench your thirst. Ku Tahuan, completely unsuspecting, reached out to remove his mask with one hand and took the cup of wine with the other. He then drained it in one gulp. Xiu Jiaoyan said, do you know how much trouble you caused me when you left without killing Jin Xiu? Ku Tahuan was flustered. I'm sorry. Honor, I can make it up to you. You want to know the reason for the fall of the Jiu family, right? I've already investigated it. Honor, I will avenge you. I will kill all your enemies. He may be a high-ranking official with powerful martial arts, but I'm not afraid. At worst, I'll die. Xiu Jiaoyan quickly turned her face away, waving her hand dismissively. No need. I know who he is. But I don't need revenge. And I don't need you anymore. Seeing this, Ku Tahuan pleaded incessantly, Honor, don't be angry. What can I do to make you forgive me? I will definitely do it. But he suddenly noticed something was wrong with his body. He stumbled back, horrified, and raised a hand to his mouth. He then looked at his palm, which was covered in blood. Ta-Hwan was bewildered. Enter. You poisoned the wine. I did so much for you, I was willing to sacrifice everything. And you poisoned me, the love you said you had for me. Was that also a lie? Chuo Taoyan laughed coldly. Of course it was a lie. You're just a lowly war refugee. My father took you in as an adopted son, and you really thought you were my brother. You're just a slave. Those words were like 1,000 knives stabbing into Ku Ta-Hwan's innocent heart. His eyes bulged, his face a mask of disbelief. This is a dream, right? There were no more tears to fall, only blood dripping down, a tragedy of the highest level of bitterness. Indeed, dying for a woman is the most painful death of all. But will Ku Ta-Hwan really die? Let's wait for the next chapter to find out.